This video gives a brief introduction to using Microsoft Project to put together a Gantt chart. Start out by going down and selecting Microsoft Project. Project 2013 is the version we're using. When it pops up, choose a blank project. And the first thing that I suggest doing when you come into Microsoft Project is go to File, Options, to change some of the settings. Number one, make sure that your name is listed here. You want to have your name as the identified user of any documents you create. Then check your date format. I like to adjust my dates so that they're as compact as possible. So I just use month/day as my date format. The one other thing I suggest changing is go to your schedule, and partway down the schedule screen you'll see new task created, manually scheduled. Change that to auto scheduled. I would prefer that you generate tasks and then have the task timing be determined by dependencies, not by you typing in any dates. So this avoids that. Okay, let's click OK to get out of that menu. Then go ahead and set up your basic project information. So go to the Project tab and then choose Project Information, and then choose a start date for your project. It defaults to the current date. Let's change this to something a little bit earlier. Let's say September the 28th was a start date for a project. So we choose that, and we can see the calendar has now shifted with the dotted line showing up on the start date for the project. Okay, so now we need to add some tasks. That's the first thing you want to do. But before you even do that in Microsoft Project, you want to identify what those tasks are. I strongly recommend get some post-it notes, write out all of the things that have to happen, that you have to do in order to complete the deliverables that this project has. So I have done that for a sample project that I call Getting an Interview. So I went through and I thought of all the things that you would need to do to prepare to request an interview with a company through an on-campus career fair. So I've done that list on Post-it notes. I've then arranged those Post-it notes and determined a proper order, and then I took down that order in Excel. I recommend you do that because you're more comfortable with Excel than you are with Microsoft Project, so you just type out a list. So these are the list of the things that need to happen. Everything in the light print here is the tasks that I thought were relevant. And then I added some titles or some headers. In Microsoft Project, those will be summary tasks. And that's just a good way of organizing things. Rather than a list of every single task, you can group them into similar tasks that make sense. So for example, I like to have a summary task way at the top that's basically just the project name. So get an on-campus interview is mine. And then there are a number of tasks that are associated with getting your resume ready for the on-campus career fair. So prepare resume was my title there. And then preparing for the career fair, you need to find out what's happening at the career fair. You need to prepare to ask questions and to provide information about yourself. And of course, you need to prepare your what you're going to wear for the event. So prepare for the career fair covers a bunch of things. And under that, I've actually got two sub-summary tasks. And then lastly, of course, you're going to attend the career fair, and there are a number of things to happen there. So if you've got this list that you've done on Post-it notes, you've figured out the right order for them, you've now typed them into Excel. Excel is not a necessary step, but it makes it easier for me to demonstrate if I use Excel here. So I'm going to copy those and then go over to my project window, and right up at the top, or in the first cell under task name, I can just do a Control-V to paste them down. Now when I pasted them, you see everything over here got filled in, and that's because all new tasks are auto-scheduled. That's the change that I made. It makes Microsoft Project guess that everything is one day in length, so we're going to have to make some adjustments there. And it also sets everything up so that it starts on the start date for your project. Now, all of those will change depending on dependencies that we'll get to later. But for right now, let's not worry about these. Let's focus on the tasks themselves. First thing I want to do is identify the subtasks or the summary tasks. And my first one is this get an on-campus interview. So I'm going to select everything else, click the first one, shift to hold down. Everything should be a subtask to that. And if I'm going to make task changes, I need to be on the task tab. So go up to the top, choose task tab, and now I'm going to indent the task. And it will now be, all of those are now subtasks for Get an On-Campus Interview. In addition, I've got some other subtasks. Prepare a Resume has these 6 tasks that are subtasks, so I'm going to indent those. Do the same thing here. Well, prepare for career fair. Career fair, actually, preparation is all the way down to here. So I'm going to indent all of those as a subtask for preparing for the career fair. But then in addition, preparing the talking points has its own set of subtasks, and getting your wardrobe has its own set of subtasks. And then lastly, I've got some subtasks for attending the career fair. Okay, now suppose that I made a mistake and I realized that in fact the identifying my interests, maybe that should happen somewhere else. Well, I can click it and then I let go, so that's a single click, and then I can drag that task. Let's say identifying my interests, that's really more important to listing my strengths and experiences. So I can move tasks that easily. I'm going to move this one back because what I meant by it was identifying your companies of interest. So it does deserve to be in the section with the companies. Okay, so we've got the project up here, we've got the tasks identified, and we've got summary tasks. This little triangle, by the way, if you click that, it will minimize that summary task. So if you've got a lot of individual tasks, sometimes it's easier to look at the summaries. For now, let's keep everything fully open. Okay, so now let's look at relationships between tasks. You can see right now every task is sitting right on the start date. By default, that's what happens. But sometimes things need to happen one after another. So let's look at this list of things for drafting or for preparing your resume. I suggested you need to draft it, review it with friends, do a revision, then take it to Career Center for a review there, then revise it again, and then print some copies. All of those are tasks that need to happen in sequence. There's not any overlap between those. So if I highlight all of those tasks, and then I come up here and I click the link button, it will link them all together, one after the other, and by default, the link that shows up is a finish to start link. So this task number 4 or 5, needs to finish before the following task starts. I can change that. I'm going to double click on this, just right on one of the arrows there, and I can see there's my task dependency. So I can change this to a start to start, or a finish to finish, or a start to finish. Or I can introduce a lag. So maybe I need a little bit of sync time between these two tasks. We'll use that later. I'll just cancel out of that menu. Let's do some more down here. Obtaining a list of companies and then identifying which ones you're interested in and then researching those. Again, those 3 things need to happen in sequence. So I'm going to link them all. There might, of course, be a little bit of research that happens before you identify your interest because you might not know anything about the company. Prepare your talking points. So listing your strengths and then creating an elevator chat. Those 2 things have to happen in sequence. But listing your key questions does not have to happen in the same sequence. So, strengths, create the elevator chat. List key questions. Does anything have to happen before that? Well, you probably want to know what the company is before that one. So I can select list key questions and then research companies, holding down the control key. Uh-oh, look what happened. Because I selected list key questions first, that was the one that had to finish before research companies. So be careful with that. You can get rid of this by double-clicking on it and deleting it. And then you can come back and choose research companies and then list key questions and create your link. Now it's going in the right direction. All right. Professional attire, review your wardrobe. You should review your wardrobe before you go out and buy some new things. And then attending the career fair, you certainly need to visit a company before you can give them your elevator chat. And you probably want to do the elevator chat before you ask questions. So we'll do all of those. And you probably want to do all those things before you ask for an interview. So in fact, those should go in sequence. All right, so I've got some dependencies. And you can see over here on the right that I have been generating my initial Gantt chart. It looks a little bit plain right now because everything is assumed to take 1 day. But did we miss any dependencies? Let's take a look. Preparing for the career fair Obtaining a list of companies, well, you have to make sure the list is available there. So we'll take a look at that later. Attending the career fair. Oh, we can't attend the career fair until we've prepared for the career fair. So there's a link between these subtasks. And you really shouldn't attend the career fair until you've prepared a resume. So I'll grab prepare resume and then attend career fair. So you can see I've got 2 arrows here heading down. That's perfectly all right. That just says that this summary task of attending the career fair can't occur until both of these other tasks have finished. All right, so now we need to enter some time durations. And these, you want to do your best guess of how much time it will actually take you to complete that task in real time. So not, if I sat down and concentrated, I could do this in 1 hour, but realistically, you're going to need to reach people, you're going to have meals, you're going to have classes. How much time will it take to draft a resume? So let's say that takes a week. I can do 1W, it recognizes that as a week. You're going to review it with friends. Suppose you give them 3 days to do some reviews. You're going to revise it, hopefully not a lot of revision, so 2 days, good for that. Career Center or Career Services, you might need a couple days to get in there, so I'm going to do 3 days there, and then again revise, hopefully not a lot of revision, so 1 day. And then printing is obviously pretty quick, so we'll do 1 hour for that. That's as simple as it goes to enter your information about how long tasks take, and you can see that all gets expanded over. This is the beauty of having a scheduling happening automatically. It's generating your time chart for you. You don't have to put the dates in. Just the dependencies and the durations. And as long as you get that all right, things should work out correctly. Okay, so obtaining a list of companies. That should just take an hour. Identifying your interests, it should be fairly quick, but let's give yourself 3 hours to go through that list. And then some research, you probably want a few days to do that. Okay, listing your strengths, take a couple of days to think that one through. Creating an elevator chat, you probably want another 3 days at least to do that. And then key questions, hopefully that won't take you long, let's say a day. Reviewing your wardrobe, I hope it's not so big that an hour would not be enough, but it might take you a full day to get some replacements. You're going to have to find the right places. Visiting companies, I'll just put in some quick estimates here. Let's say just 30 minutes on most, 30 min. MI means mile, it won't recognize that. 30 minutes for elevator chats, key questions, let's say 15 minutes, and then ask for an interview is 10 minutes. So you can see these are different durations that you can enter. All right, so now I'm going to take another look at this. How are things standing over here? Well, it's got me doing a whole lot right at the beginning. Does that make sense? Well, maybe not. Realistically, I can't really obtain a list of companies until it's available from the Career Services. And let's say I find out that Career Services is going to have that available on October 10th. So I can enter 10/10 here, and it looks like everything I've been scheduling has been accidentally in 2017. So I'm going to cancel this. These pop-up windows happen occasionally and you learn things. So I'm going to go back to project and project information, and I'm going to enter 9/28/16 as my project start date. So now everything's shifted back to 16. I didn't notice it was on the timeline, but I didn't notice. And now I can go to obtaining my list of companies, and double click opens up task information. We'll look at that again in a moment. I'm going to delete that date and say, well, this has to happen no earlier than 10/10. And it's shifted over now, and everything then follows beyond that. So this you only want to do if there's a firm date. If instead you wanted to say, well, I don't want to start getting my list of companies until after I have, or maybe I'm just going to do it when I go to the Career Center. If I do that, then review with Career Center and obtain list of companies. Those are now linked. Want to do that at the same time? That's fine. We go to task, we create a link, By default, that became a finish to start link, but it doesn't need to be. If I double tap it, that could easily be a start to start. So you want to get the list of companies when you drop off your resume for review. So start to start is appropriate. And that allows this to shift back. So these are the different ways that you can use the your different options to change the connectivity between your tasks. So play around with those, see what makes the most sense. Again, don't enter a firm date unless that firm date is actually firm. Alrighty. Now it occurs to me that the career fair is really a single event. It's what I'm preparing for. So while it's good to keep track of what's going on during that single event, in fact, I really should just have the date in here. So I'm going to delete these subtasks. I just highlighted them and hit the delete key. And then I'm going to change the duration to 0. When you change the duration of something to 0, it changes to a diamond. It becomes a milestone event. And now here we see that, in fact, this just is randomly assigning my event to 10/18, but perhaps the career fair is actually taking place on 10/16, or let's say 10/17. I can manually type that in, but nothing happens. Well, nothing happened because this task is auto-scheduled, and I was trying to force it to happen sooner, so I have to manually schedule that task to make it happen sooner. So now 10/17 can go in here, but I have an issue. 10/17 is occurring too soon. Other tasks are not done in time for my 10/17 event. So I need to come back and make some adjustments. What can happen faster here? Well, maybe I can do the resume in 3 days. And we're fine now. So that's the approach. You want to put your milestones in, figure out the tasks that have to happen to complete that milestone, and if the tasks aren't happening fast enough, it tells you you need to focus some more energy in certain areas. So that's your quick overview. 2 other quick things I wanted to show you. If you double click on a task, you can see a lot of that information that we've been playing with on this screen can be summarized in one window. I usually don't use this because you can usually access it from the window, but if you want to, this is going to list your dependencies. If you have specific resource tracking, that would go here. I won't show you how to do that, but it's a nice, powerful tool in Microsoft Project if you want to use it. It's not really necessary to do just a Gantt chart. And there are additional things in here. You can change finish note, you can have other constraints. So by default, everything is scheduled as soon as it can. You can switch things around so that they start as late as possible. So the events occur right before the thing that they are preceding. That might make sense. I'm going to cancel this. That might make sense for Get Professional Attire. So I'm going to double click on that one and change this to I don't have the option because it's a summary task. So let's do the review wardrobe and say we're going to do that one as late as possible. And now you can see my wardrobe is all occurring over here. And as things change, that will adjust. I haven't put a date in. I've just said, well, let's just delay that activity without manually typing any dates in. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show you was your timeline. So everything here I kept with the default timeline, this bar up at the top. If I double click it, I can adjust the timeline. Right now, it's defaulting to showing me 2 tiers. The top, in this case, was weeks, and the bottom was days. And that was appropriate for this particular project that I showed you. But for your senior project, for example, that's going to be spanning many months. So I recommend keep the 2 tiers, but change the upper tier, or rather the middle tier, as it's labeled, change that to months, and then change the label to make it more compact. I don't need the full January written out. Jan tells me plenty. Okay, so if I click OK, we can see now I've just got the months listed here, but then I've got all the days. Let's clean that up and go to the bottom tier. Instead of days, we'll change it to weeks. And again, I want to keep the week designation as simple as possible. I like to just list the day that the week starts on, or the date rather. So this is what my timeline will look like. Click OK. So everything on this project got scrunched up into a very short time scale. But for your senior project, this is a good time scale. All right, that's your Gantt chart then. If you want to print it, you go to File, Print, and this is what you're going to get printing out. So you can see it's used my time scale, but it expanded everything out to fit it onto the screen. So you can still see where everything fits in here. For this print, I would probably change my time scale back, so it's actually relevant information up at the top. I like that you can see the duration, the start, the finish here. I might hide these first couple of columns because they aren't necessary, and that gives a little bit more room on the right. So again, this is something you can play with. You can either print the whole project or you can choose specific dates. By default, it's landscape. I recommend that. You can probably play around with the header information here to minimize that. So try some things out. See what you can find. All right, good luck.